We are activating your unique self-discovery one show at a time. The Orchard of Wisdom Self-Discovery podcast are at your fingertips, just waiting to inspire and invite you in discovering just how awesome you really are and how to navigate through life in joy, enrichment, personal abundance, in mind, body, spirit, heart, and soul. All the people we bring you are here to serve you on your journey of life. Do enjoy our next show. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Ignite Your Heart and Soul right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my wonderful guest today is Meredith Herrenbruck. We have a lot to talk about today. We were wondering which genre for this to go under, because we're going to be looking at mental health programming, we're looking at spirituality, soul constellations, and Huna, which are crucial elements to use to help improve one's experience in life. Meredith explores the connections between NLP, family soul constellations, and Huna healing, as well as how these different aspects form our mental programming and can help uncover the root cause of a person's issue. And we are going to discover what Huna is. I don't know. I'm quite excited to find out about. And we're going to look at also what's the ghost in the closet and why kids are afraid of the dark, and how two clients with this real issue and a ghost other than an entity attached to a toy. Energy, and we're going to be talking about keeping ourselves and our house clean and vibrant, and the need to keep things cleaned, organized, and energetically happy, and how negativity breeds negativity and entitles and come into attach and deplete yours, especially during COVID. We have an awful lot to talk about here, but a lot of it is about her book, Becoming Ridiculously, I love it, awesome. Ridiculously awesome. I love it, I love it, I love it. Awesome. There's also a lovely word out there called flawsome, which is, beautifully flawed and awesome while we're at it. So the same line there, and ridiculously awesome. Where did you get that title? I do love it. Welcome to the show, love.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I, I grew up not feeling ridiculously awesome. And when I finally found those tools, which we will get into today, shifted me so dramatically. And I didn't wake up dreading the day. I didn't wake up dreading going to sleep and all those things. So I was looking for a title of my book, and I go, how do I want people to feel? How do I feel now compared to where I was? And the word awesome is just great. I started off with excellent. I'm like, excellent is so stuffy and staid. Yeah. I said, awesome is just blowing the doors open, feeling good. There are no limits. There's no one putting any chains on you. And let's just add ridiculous to it as well, right? So that's how it all began.
Well, I don't think you can be truly awesome without having gone through some ridiculous things in your life, because that's actually what leads us to our awesomeness, isn't it? It's the resilience, the tenacity, the commitment, the willing to go through something to become that awesome. And some of the things that we do go through in life are utterly ridiculous. And the ridiculous maybe because they're old patterning, they're old programming, there are outside elements that are having an effect on us. And if we don't kind of look at it and go, that's ridiculous, why am I still going through that? How can you reach the awesomeness?
It is very true. And often we find our greatness is through those challenges and getting to the other side, realizing that, wow, I did have the power. Oh, I did have enough knowledge. Oh, I did have enough resources. And now I know how to use them, right? But if we're never challenged, this is the good news, bad news of being human is, the good news is we get to expand our awareness. We get to expand our strength. We get to really figure out what this body is and how we can use it, and all of those intricacies. The bad news is sometimes we have to go through, I guess, those challenges to go, oh, I guess something's not working. I guess we need to tweak something. But the problem that happens is that we do this like mental mind mess where we go, oh, well, and we create these belief systems about the challenge. And this is where we get stuck. This is where I help people is we believe that, well, maybe I deserve this.
Yeah.
I deserve this lot in life. I deserve to have a bad boyfriend. I deserve to stay in a job that I hate, etc. Or I shouldn't have this. And what happens is we have these experiences, and this is where NLP comes in, which is called neuro-linguistic programming. It was developed in the 60s by these two guys in psychiatry field. And they started to basically, as a side note, ask really good questions. They phrased things in a way that asks, how are we creating our experience? Not how are we receiving it and how is life giving you your horrible lot in life,
Right.
but how are we creating it? And then
Yeah.
you go, and just in that question and all
Yes.
the questions that we ask, we go, the underlying presupposition is, it's a big word, presupposition, is, well, maybe I have some power in how I am living my life.
Yes.
Uh-oh. And then you go, well, if I have power, then maybe I have to learn how to use it.
Right. Yes. And change
So,
things up. So perception, isn't it? Changing that perception. You know, the old terminology. You've made your bed, now lie in it. Why? You know, what if I could actually change the sheets or even change the bed altogether? You know, like, is it, we're so caught up in a rut of believing that this is the hand we've been dealt and that's all we have, without actually understanding that maybe you did create this by following an old pattern or believing that's all you were worth, and that, hey, if I did create this, surely I can create something better for myself.
yes. I have an example for you. I had a client the other day who, in this old patterning that she had, she was stopping herself from creating success, whatever that was. But I mean, she was primarily focused on financial success, and she was always having a hard time finding a job, even though she's very good at her craft and so forth. And we finally found out that when she was younger, often these belief systems, really about 80% about of what we believe about ourselves in the world, are established by the age of 3. The rest is refinement.
Mm.
But around the age of 7, her mother would, the daughter had chores, and she'd earn money for these special chores and stuff, but her mom would take the money out to use for herself.
Ah.
And her mom says, well, it's really my money.
Mm.
And so I'm going to, basically take it back. And so her belief was, well, wouldn't it be better if I just never had enough money so then she could never take it?
Right. Mm.
And when it finally clicked for her, she goes, oh my gosh, I've had that running my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, good news, bad news. You don't have enough money. But then I asked her a question. I said, well, you're an adult now. Who is allowing her to take the money in the first place? Do you have to allow her anymore?
Right.
Right?
Yes.
Doesn't she have her own job and her own things? Who says that you have to actually give her money or that she has to take it from you anymore? And she goes, that's right. Right. And so the shifting of the
Yeah.
belief systems, it tumbles the old things down, all the survival skills that we learned to grow up with, which worked back then,
Mm.
but don't work for us now. And so when we look at the tangle of webs that we have created for ourselves, and then we can, unravel and go, oh, well, maybe I don't have to have that anymore. What's a better idea? What's maybe a new way of living that, gosh, I really want to live in now. I know I can have now.
Yeah.
The old stuff falls away,
Blank
right?
canvas. You know,
Yes.
it's your paintbrush. You can paint whatever you want on that canvas, as bright as you want, as abundantly as you want. Uh, it's up to you. And I think that's one of the things that people don't understand is how much empowerment we really do have in our choices. Things do happen to us. And sometimes we have, we're being a child parent who's taking the money, but abuse, etc., etc. You didn't ask for that, especially at a young age, but maybe your soul did. Who knows? There's different topic there, but you can look at okay, this is happening to me. Perhaps it's happening for me to discover my strength, my courage, my abilities, and how much more than I am than what's happening to me.
Yes. Yes, it's brilliantly said. And sometimes I think, as you say, we feel things are happening to us, but it is our choice on what we believe about the experience, what our takeaways are, and how we want to move forward. What happens though is, I mean, as a child, we're never really taught
Yeah,
to have those skills. And also the parents are just reacting too,
yeah.
right? From their stuff and on and on and on.
The
And I
DNA,
think oh, goodness. Oh, yes. The many layers that we
yes.
carry with us.
Mm,
But what I think I'm very happy with, at least in this generation, more so now, is that we look at what are we dealing with mentally?
yeah.
How do we work through the problems? And then also, what is holding us in that space? Is it just the brain? Is it
Mm,
just the feelings? Is it now, okay, I mean, nutrition definitely plays a part,
yes.
genetics plays a part, but also as you have alluded to, what does our soul say
Mm,
about this whole thing? And how do we, then my main question with all that I do is how do we get ourselves into alignment of where we want to go now?
right,
What's the baggage that we have that we don't know we have?
right.
Entities attached, old soul contracts,
Hmm.
childhood experiences that were like, I've lived with that long enough. I don't want to have PTSD anymore.
Mm,
I don't want to have to take pills anymore, etc. Anyway, so like, but there are ways to realign.
yes.
And I'm talking about realignment. Maybe you never were aligned, but I
Yeah.
can't imagine that we were never aligned at one point. But let's clear all that old stuff out. Find your feet, find your center, get back in your body and go, all right, there's a whole lot of living to do. How am I going to do that now with my resources that I now
Mm,
know I have? And now that awesomeness that I'm reaching down into. And let's express that.
yes. Be open and willing and allow different experiences. And again, a lot of people go, "Yep, that's never going to happen to me. It's going to do it this way. It's going to be done that way." And we know you're still stepping into rigidity. We have to, I think, understand we're fluid creatures. And, when the brain knows, I don't need to accept that, but I'm open to accepting feeling like this. Don't dictate what you want to happen to you, but rather paint the picture of how you want to feel. And then allow that flow of all of those beautiful resources, spirit, mind, body, soul, to come in and help you feel like that by making the events happen around you. We we so want to be in control. All we have control of is choosing to be free to experience in a higher vibration.
Yes. And when you do that, your cells change, the
Yes.
chemistry changes, your maybe you've lightened the load of all that you're holding, maybe old fear patterns, right? Lungs are connected to fear.
Hmm.
Liver, I believe, is connected to anger. So if you have issues with certain organs, they tend to relate to certain maybe stuck feelings.
Yes.
That's also a way to help heal. Yes, there is, the medical field. I think it's very important. I think, however, the medical field is more of, in a way, reactionary. They're
Yeah.
they're dealing with the symptoms, but let's go to the source of the
Yes.
problem
Yes.
such that we don't have to repeat it and band-aid everything until we die. Like, why can't we just automatically heal or prevent things from happening and going, oh, I'm noticing I'm feeling tired today. Well, if I keep going down that road, then I'm going to get sick. And then I'm going to have to take, time off. Then I'm going to have to take pills and blah, blah, blah. Well, what if we say, I'm going to take a day off
Yeah.
and I'm going to feel good and rebalance myself
Hmm.
and master yourself more on a high level rather than going, I owe the rest of the world something.
Right. We are all here to be of service to one another, but not to be a servant to one another. And
Yes.
I think, that servitude is at the expense of you. To be in service is sharing the best the essence of you. And if we can step into that essence of our awesomeness, uh, we know when we need to replenish. We know what replenishes us, but we also have more to give. Our cup runneth over.
Yes. And that's what I would love more people to be able to understand, is that rather than owing the rest of the world or being someone for someone else, often our parents, and they say, our parents have fears of, we
Yes.
want, the parents want success, of their children. 99.9% of the time, often it comes across as judgment or all these things. And the child internalizes, oh, I have to be this way and I have to be that. But when you go upstream again and you go, do my parents really want me to fail? Do
Yeah.
my parents really want, um, my downfall? And they'll go, well, no, of course not. Um, and and so then what ends up happening is when we uncover our greatness and we finally realize that there's all this love coming downstream properly with our highest selves connected, then we go, well, now when I'm more powerful and light and bright, well, then just not to shine it to others, but you naturally shine.
Yeah.
And then it's infectious. And
Yes.
then we are more dynamic. We have better relationships. We have greater wealth in emotions, in finances, et cetera, et cetera. Then the world is better. But when we are trying to do things for other people, that is where you will lose your energy. You'll become resentful,
Yes.
and life will not go as well for you.
You'll never be able to please everybody, so stop trying.
Right?
When you've stepped into your own beautiful essence of who you are, why you are, you've stepped into your own self-love. And then you start looking at life through the lenses of love and gratitude and appreciation and wanting to share that love out with other people. And you find that instrument in which to share it out with. And then that exuberance and that inspiration that you are becomes an invitation for others.
Yes.
How did you get there? I want to get there too. And then it's, you become that example. The As of the news, I don't know if you know, but the Queen Elizabeth has just died a few hours ago. And you
Mm.
look at her years of service, of commitment, of dedication, whether you agree with the royal family or not, you looked at a woman there that was handed a role that she had to accept. There was no other option. And she did it with grace. She did it with full commitment. She did it for God knows how many years, 75
Yes.
or 78 years. And whether you agree or not to some of the things that have happened, you have to look at her as an example of commitment. Now, we know that she would have far rather would have raised horses because that's really where her passion was. That wasn't an option
Right.
for her. But
Right.
we want people to find that passion, that's something they love, but also then step into that same commitment and grace that she represented. And if we do that and become that person that really is, this is your passion, this is your calling, this is the reason why you're here, and you want to share that out with others and ignite that heart and soul in others, then I think you really actually do understand why you're living.
Yes. Yes. I think when we give that power to other people,
Mm,
um, that we are under the false assumption that someone is more powerful,
mm,
that they are better, that they whatever it is. And I look at that through parental roles, parental children dynamics that I often come across when people are in session. And it always goes back to, oh, well, I love my parents, but they do this, or they have these judgments, or they have these perspectives, and I understand where they're coming from, but there's always this, uh, and I go, but do you think they really want to control you?
mm.
And why are you giving them control?
Right.
Why, like, what do you get from giving your power away? Right. And it's a difficult thing that every person has to experience at some point, of going, am I sovereign to my body? Am I sovereign to my experience? Am I sovereign to where I want to go? And when you really look at it, and this is why I guess therapy and just looking at the mirror is sometimes very difficult, because we don't really want to go through the dark forest of our thoughts, and we don't want to have the wow, well, maybe I could have handled that better. Like
Right.
the self-reflection
Yes.
is complicated, and we don't want to self-judge. But if you go, well, what if no one's looking?
Yeah.
What if no one will ever know? And then you can do this behind closed doors, but then come out going, all right, I've laid those things to rest.
Hmm.
Now I know who I am as an adult, as a sovereign person going forward. When we don't do that, we remain kind of in a childlike state.
Yes.
And although I don't, I guess, say actively practice Christianity, I like to follow kind of the best of lots of religions. I'm more spiritual than anything.
Yep.
But I do love Corinthians 13. And they say, and there's a part of the passage that says, you know, when I was a child, I thought as a child, I spoke as a child. And when I became a man, I put away childish things. But I liken that more into enlightenment or
Yes.
stages of adulthood, not just I'm a quote grown up and I can pay my taxes.
Right. Exactly.
It's
Yes.
not about that at all. It's about being an adult in a more expanded, aware consciousness. And if we take it to there, and even when you're talking about, well, life is about love. You can love when you can put away your fears and know that your fears are just a part of things, but you don't need to be controlled by your fears as well.
Right.
That when you come from that sovereign, expanded, balanced, grounded place, well, then fear doesn't really need to happen.
And if you do become afraid of anything, there's a valid reason for it, because you're not living in a state of fear all the time. It's just an awareness. Okay, that doesn't feel right. Or, you know, this is a warning. You recognize it for what it is. And it's not like, something else is happening to me, because you're in that fear state all the time. And if you recognize what is around you, you can make a better choice to avoid it or deal with it without being fearful of it.
Exactly. And to that point of, you can deal with it, but what happens if you have worked through those fears and you've shifted your filters? What if perhaps then those things won't come around anymore?
Right. Yoda, these are not the fears you want.
Exactly. And so that's what NLP does, right? That's what NLP does. And Huna and constellations, it is shifting your consciousness such that you are not vibrating those levels of emotions, if you will, right? Fear vibrating in a certain way. You know, so if you had trauma growing up, what happens with your brain and your awareness is what you survive, you recreate. Because if you've already survived it, then, well, gosh, that worked.
Yeah, exactly.
And you go, well, so then you keep kind of subconsciously putting out that energy to find just those experiences again to keep surviving. So the trick is to let that go through, you know, NLP and conscious shifting and going, I really don't need to vibrate there anymore. I really am done with that. And so we uncover all those belief systems and structures and let them go, offer new resources such that that stuff doesn't need to happen anymore. So whenever I stumble in life, which, hey, I mean, I'm better at things, but there are new challenges coming in. And I go, and I don't say, wow, why is the world so mean to me?
Exactly.
I go, well, what am I doing? What am I thinking? What am I believing about myself?
What vibration am I sending out? Yeah.
What am I doing? And I just sit there.
Yeah.
And I go, it's internal work. It's not changing the rest of the world. It's doing it in here. And then everything will shift in a few days. And then I go, great. I don't need to be sick. I don't need to go through this. and now I'm on to my new thing.
Right. And it's also not something you're kind of going to do once and then that's it. And well, I did it. Why is it happening again? Is because A, we have masses of cellular layers and other things are going to come up, that things are going to get triggered. And that just means you need to clear it out at that time. Oh, okay, this
Yes.
is visited. No, it doesn't mean I'm going back there or I need to be afraid of it. It just obviously was in a cellular pocket that needs to be released now. All right, because I know how to release it, I know how to recognize it, and I know it's no longer a part of me.
Yes. Yes. And the thing too, why, it reminds me of why people have a hard time sometimes letting go
Mm,
is because they identify themselves so much with the trauma or the pain or the experience. And we don't know who we are without that.
yeah,
If we've had trauma growing up or parent was an alcoholic, then well, right. And you keep spinning and you say, but this is who I am. And I think
mm,
that's why even if we're jumping forward to why some people have midlife crisis or they go, well, what is my identity?
yeah,
And they have to change everything to say I'm something new. They're still going to be the same people. They're
yeah,
still going to have the same patterns, etc. But we get trapped in who we think we are to ourselves, to society, and to our family. Because if we shift too much, often we fear that if we are too different, we will not be accepted.
right. And I think at that point, you have to go, I cannot stay here for them. I have to move, I have to elevate, I have to open up. And if they at some point do their own journey and we meet on the same vibration again, a higher vibration, wonderful. If we don't, then I love you and wish you well, but I have to
Yes.
move forward. And I know that's hard for a lot of people because you're leaving family members behind. And I did that with a couple of family members. And for a while, there was a big gap there. And then it came to a realization of how much I had changed, how much I had grown, how much more peaceful I was with myself. And although they hadn't kind of necessarily done their work to rise themselves up to a certain level, there wasn't the conflict anymore. It's like, I don't quite register where you are, but I know that it suits you and I like being around you like this. And so it's a different channel. They're not,
Yes.
they're not the whole station. They're on a different channel and it's more peaceful. They're accepting you for who you are, even though they're not quite there. And you can have communication on that level. Not everybody has to come up to that same vibration that you're playing on, but don't stay around because you want to please them or you feel guilty for moving on. You owe it to yourself and in the end to them to do that for yourself.
It is so true. And I recently did that myself. And it was so many years of learning to find my own self and
Yeah.
my own sovereignty and so forth. And it's very difficult with narcissistic parents because they're very good at manipulating and and making you feel insane or
Yes.
wrong, and they're
Yes.
and they're running their fears to such a high level
Yeah.
that, I mean, they don't know that they're doing it, and so forth. It's so automatic. But when you go, well, you know what, I'm equally as important.
Yeah.
I see you once in a while, but if this is causing me so much heartache and we cannot see eye to eye, then I have to take care of myself. And
Because
and
if not,
sometimes
you're
we
being
have,
your own persecutor because you're allowing it to happen. You're handing them the weapon.
you
Yeah.
are. And although they might remain angry and call you names and so forth. I mean, some are very, very vicious, and
Yes.
sometimes they can be, the breakup is very physical.
Hmm.
But and I'd learned a lot about narcissism and borderline personality disorder in a long class, and some of them are very violent endings, if you will, or
Mm.
separations. Um, but sometimes you have to ask, if someone is in that situation, you go, to what end
Yeah.
or at what point will I go down this road where I say it's enough? You have to ask that question. Is it
Yes.
my own demise? And well, let's not
Right.
sugarcoat it.
Yes,
Is it my
exactly.
death?
Yes.
Do I have to lose a finger? Do I have
Yeah.
to get in a car crash? Do I have to? Because a lot of times we will not face things because, oh, it's not bad enough.
Right.
But then let's ask ourselves, when is it bad enough? What is it? Let's make that picture.
Are
Let's
you
make that
actually alive? Or are
right.
you living a living death?
Yes. It is so true. But I think, when you look at PTSD,
Yeah.
CPTSD, which is the enduring PTSD, you look at um, uh, family abuse, and spousal abuse and so forth. And you go, but at what point
Mm.
do you leave? And a lot of people shifting this dynamic a little bit, or this conversation, is why people also have a hard time leaving is not just because, well, it's not bad enough, but they go, but what do I move to?
Yes. Or
There's
how
the
do I
kind of,
move to it?
how do I move to it, and what are the steps? But
Yeah.
often we don't even get to what are the steps. They go, I can't.
Yeah.
Well, why can't you? What would you lose of value if you did?
Mm.
And but you have to tease apart
Yeah.
that experience, and you have to go, let's look at it deeply, and let's just ask questions. We're not saying you have to do it, but
Mm.
if you are finding that you are sad, depressed, having physical abuse, etc., like if you are in your life and you are stuck somehow, let's ask how you're there, and then how we want to get you to the next place. Your brain, your body, your soul cannot create the bridge
Mm.
until we make that picture and go, is it safe to move over there? And let's discuss how maybe it is already safe,
Yeah.
or safer than you think. Maybe there are other resources, because our brains are so brilliant at working out problems, but we have to give it the problem, or we have to give it that visual first, to
Mm.
then be for it to work its magic to move over to that new place.
It's like oxygen, isn't it? You're giving it
Yes.
the oxygen to breathe, to actually see things in a different way. And we know that when you're in fear or in depression and you're shut down, everything about you tightens up, and including
Yes.
kind of the brain power. You can't think. All you know is that you're in this state of fear all the time, or the state of less. And it's very hard
Yes.
to come out of that until at some point you go, this, I can't live like this anymore. And then the
Yes.
next step is, but how do I get out? And that's where you seek the help from people who can help you. And they're not doing it for you, they're showing you how to do it for yourself, how to
Absolutely.
get out of it. And it's like sometimes recognizing how far you are deep in that tunnel to realize, oh my God, I didn't realize I'd gone so, I'd retreated so much. But it
Yes.
doesn't mean that it's such a long length to come back out, because when you've decided that the light over there is much brighter, and this is how I walk out there, then I leave the fears behind, then you realize it's a shorter distance. It becomes a longer distance if you resist it, because resistance
Yes.
is, it's futile, because one way or the other, you're going to stay where you are or you're going to come out. The
Yes.
choice is yours.
Yes. There's this book that I read my children, and it's a beautiful, beautiful book. And there's a series, but this one specific one is, What Do I Do with a Chance?
Mm.
And it talks about the fears, and, well, what if people laugh at me? And what if I fall on my face? And so this child resists, and he pulls back at this chance coming along, and then the chances kind of go away, and he doesn't see the chances for a long time. And then he goes, well, why don't I have a chance? Well, and then he finally comes to the realization of, well, what if I don't have to be fearful all the time,
Mm.
but just fearful at sometimes? And what if I could be brave at just the right time?
Yeah.
And then what if I just grabbed onto that chance and held with all my might?
Mm.
And so then the chance ends up growing and becoming, it's this, amazing marriage of excitement and exhilaration.
Yes.
And he catapults into this new world, and everything gets brighter. And it's we have to get in touch with our brave souls, and going, well, what if my being brave could be greater than our fears at the right time?
Yeah. We're so
And
much braver than we think, right?
we
Or we
are,
allow ourselves to be
we
until
are.
we're willing to accept that challenge. And then we go, oh my God, I didn't know I could do this. I didn't know
Yes,
I could be that. I didn't know it
yes,
was this easy, or I didn't know I had that capacity to
yes,
overcome this. And then you go, gosh, there must be so much more to me than I've ever
yes.
seen. And then it becomes that wonderment. A book for me that was a great shift thinker was Who Moved My Cheese by Spencer Johnson, MD. And,
Yeah.
two mice and two men living over abundance of cheese, and one day the cheese is gone. And I'm a true colors coach as well, so I identified them as, the color personality traits, and I identified which one I was. And it now wasn't sniffy and scary, but I certainly wasn't him. Give me back my cheese. Who do I have to sue? I was the her. I had to kind of register that I was hungry, and the cheese wasn't coming back for me to go searching. And I think sometimes if we can identify who we are as a personality, who we are as that, is that I do have a tendency to hold on things or worry about things, or need something to prove itself before I can move. And if we know that, then we can also go, I don't need to have that much proof. I can trust the gut and move a little faster. And I think we get to know ourselves better. We get to trust ourselves more, the more we're willing to know ourselves.
Beautifully put. And I think the more we do trust in ourselves, I mean, we imagine, think of all the choices that we've made that got us to this place right here and now.
Mm-hmm.
We probably have enough money in the bank. There might be, yes, obstacles, but if we have a roof over our head
Mm-hmm.
and we've had some education, well, that will take you pretty darn far. And you have your brain and your soul is so much more attuned than you think. You just have to aim it the right direction.
Yeah.
You have to
Yeah.
let those things go and go, all right, you know what? We're done with all of that now. However, we let that go. And it doesn't need to be 20 years on the therapist couch either.
Right.
Um, but once you decide to start and you go, you know what? Maybe I am smart enough. Maybe I am resourceful enough. Maybe I can just open myself up just a little bit. And universe, maybe can you help me out?
Yeah.
And once you shift to asking for a little bit of help, I will tell you the coincidences that I've learned
Mm-hmm.
are not
Yeah.
coincidences at
Divine
all.
connection, yeah, synchronicity.
Are
Yeah.
It is ridiculous.
Yes.
And I mean, remember the first time I noticed it, I was in my early 20s. I was going down on a bus to work in San Francisco, and there was a word that I'd read, and I didn't know what the meaning was. It was some esoteric word, and I go, "Huh, that's really interesting." Huh. And I was really curious about it. I'm sitting on the bus maybe 2 days later, and someone literally is using that word and defining the meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, well, that's quite interesting. I was really curious about that word. And 2 days later, like, was it in every single newspaper across the universe and everyone is talking about this word? But it was so odd. And I go, and what I noticed too, which I've written in my book, is there is like a ribbon of light that I notice sometimes in things, and things just look right, or they feel like a little too perfect in a way. And when it just kind of vibrates this really beautiful vibration, I go, and I notice now, pay attention to that. That's
Yes.
important.
Yeah.
That's going to be very cool. Don't say, oh, it's too easy or too, just notice that. And when
Pay
you
attention.
start, pay attention, wake up.
Yes.
And
Be
you
present.
finally, oh my goodness, and you go, oh, and then I just get all excited, like, ooh.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, to the queen, to the point of the queen, I have learned to notice when I start thinking about political figures,
Mm-hmm.
um, they end up, I'm just tuned into vibrations of their transition.
Mm. Mm.
And when I ask and I start researching online, I'm like, and I ask, are they still around? Then I know, oh, okay, something's happening.
Yes.
And so that has happened with the queen from my experience. And so I knew that was imminent.
Yeah.
And so I hope her transition is clean and beautiful and
Yeah.
clear. And I'm very sorry for those who are having a hard
Yeah.
time with her loss. She created such a beautiful stability at her own sacrifice. And
Absolutely.
I think she did a very beautiful job
Yeah.
doing that. She was very savvy,
Yes.
and she had to learn to become savvier and put her own feelings aside many times,
Many
you
times.
know?
Right
Right.
now, I just see her riding her horses, out in the
Yes.
universe, finally free, no longer
Yes.
having to serve anyone but herself, and well deserved, right? Well
Yes.
deserved. But, I do think what she leaves behind is that sense of commitment. Whether you like the role you're giving, sometimes we're chosen. I mean, so many people I've interviewed have developed particular gifts, and it's like, but it's so difficult because people don't understand or people ostracize you. And I said, then why don't you just look at it, your gift, in a different way, as you were chosen for it. And
Mm.
although it means a different approach to your life and a different approach from other people over your life, look at it as being grateful for the gift that you've been given, and that it wouldn't have been given to you had they not thought that you could cope with it.
Yes. Yes. Very true. And the coping skills that certain people take, alcohol and so forth and
Mm,
so on, that just masks. I think a lot of people, especially in the last few years, have done a lot of coping
yeah,
because there's been so much fear
yeah.
thrust on us in some ways. However you
Mm.
want to take it, I have
Well,
my
I,
views,
I
but
I call it the Fox News event. Let's take a pimple and make it into a volcanic eruption.
yes, yes. And whatever is being stated out in the universe, it is up to us to
Yes.
act, react, or maybe we just can respond. And we
Mm,
can do so quietly or do so in a reactive way. But when we are reactive, looking back at the brain, that keeps us in fight or flight mode. That's the
yes.
reptilian brain, the oldest part of our brain. And what happens is if we are in that fight or flight all the time in high stress, we end up getting chronic conditions and so forth.
Yep. This is.
Which it goes down that whole rabbit hole. But if we can then take that breath
Mm,
and go, do I have to react?
yeah.
Or we say, how do I want to respond to this?
Or even just reflect.
Reflect. Then we start getting back into the executive functioning.
Yeah.
And then we can get into the problem solving mode, or just, you know what, I don't need to deal with that. Because we
I
don't
mean,
need
that
to deal with a lot that goes across our
I
plate.
know, I know. And this is something I think that, when Winnie lists to take the journey, and something about getting older is that I don't need to respond to that. I can reflect on, okay, what does it mean? Is it anything that's significant that I have to deal with? I'm aware of it, but do
Yeah,
I have to do anything with it? No. It was just some
right.
information to store. I don't need to respond to it, and I don't need to react to it.
Yes.
Sometimes it's just a reflection of it, because it's past your table. A little bit
Yes.
of knowledge you need. And this having to be reactionary over everything to such a high scale, because that's something I think what we really have. I feel that for so many people, they're caught in a hurricane of of hysteria, where
Yes.
everything has just gone so out of proportion. They don't know how to get out of the hurricane. And they're trying to do it by going to the outside of the hurricane. No,
Yes.
go to the center. Go to the
Yes.
center. That's where you will find that peace. That's where you'll be able to get out of it. But they're just so caught up in the whirlwind of it that it becomes more and more and more and more and more and more. And they've lost all sense of anything at that point. And it's hard to bring them back unless they have decided, I can't do this anymore.
Yes. And I think that's where I think a lot of people went to was in the beginning of COVID, fear.
Yes.
A lot of fear was created.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think intentionally. Uh, but it was up to us to react a
Yes.
certain, and so we have to go, well, what is my responsibility to this dynamic?
Where's the
What
common
is my
sense?
part, right? What is my part in this?
Yeah.
And so I started to spin at the beginning as well. And I just go, oh my goodness, da, da, da. What does it mean? I have two young, my husband and I have two younger daughters. What does that mean? and all these questions. And then there was a point where I go, Meredith, get back into your center.
Yes.
Stop reacting. What is this going to get you?
Yeah.
And I think, again, check out what is your identity in it? What is
Yeah.
your payoff and reward for being in this flurry of fear?
I mean,
You're
the thing
getting
is,
a payoff for
you
it.
are, and why did you read it as something to be so hysterically fearful over, instead of just cautionary?
Yes.
This, I put out a show right at the beginning. Let's use our common sense, just as we would with any cold or flu. And this is more vicious and more deadly. Yes, I understand, but common sense of wash your hands, right? Cover your mouth, and if you are sick, don't be around people. But the more that you get hysterical over it, the more you're weakening your immune system, and the more you're going to be subjected to it or something else. And it's like, take a breath. I know there's a whirlwind around you, but take a breath. What are you
Yes.
empowered to do rather than the fear of what you can't do?
Yes. And the thing too is, where is our attention? It
Yes.
is out there.
Yes.
As you said, you can't control out there,
Mm.
but we can control what's in here. And the more I do this work, the more I am reminded, the universe keeps reminding me to go back inside and go, well, if I'm reactive and I'm tired and exhausted, okay, well, I ask myself, what is my payoff
Yeah.
for being all reactive? And then I go, oh, well, maybe I don't need to do that, right?
Yeah.
It could be old patterning,
Yeah.
people pleasing, and everyone's got their whole host of things. And I go, okay, oh no, that's right. I don't have to do that anymore.
Right.
Okay, how do I feel better? And then when we start to spin our wheels, our chakras, our energies,
Yes.
our balancing, and then we
Yeah.
go, oh, right, I don't have to worry about someone in Antarctica right now
Yes. Send
because
them
that
love. Send them
dissipates
love.
us.
Yeah.
Yes. Send them love, do that, and send that energy, and not that, oh, I hope you're okay. No, let's send them the positive
Yeah.
energy, high level stuff, but then go, but what can I do here?
Yes.
And I think
Where's the
what
empowerment?
what I found through COVID was, aha, well, isn't this a beautiful opportunity to say, hi, neighbor, do
Yes.
you need help?
Yes.
Do you need, I'm going to the groceries. Do you want something? And people started to know our neighbors
Yeah.
better. And
Well,
I go, well, isn't that lovely?
I
Right?
looked upon it in many ways as a gift. Obviously, clearly, many people lost their lives and families and things like this.
Yes.
My heart goes out to them. But in many ways, as it was a worldwide thing happening to us all simultaneously, what was the gift in it? And the gift, I felt, was a great deal of review, reset, and redirect. And so
Yes.
many people were looking at it. I didn't realize I was chasing this, that, etc. I didn't realize I was spending so much of myself at the expense of myself. I've been given a pause. I can reflect on my life. I can reset things. I can redirect things into another area that is more meaningful, more purposeful, and something that I can do that is not going to cost me my very heart, soul, spirit, and health. And for
Yes.
many people, it became that gift. And again, I think it's all a question of, were you still enough in the moment to open up and take that reflection and then open up to receive the redirection?
Yes. And to even believe that it's possible,
Yeah.
because more refined, elevated vibrations are quieter.
Yes.
There's, for me, they're smaller,
Yes.
they're so subtle. And once I start, because the darker negative fear-based vibrations are clunky,
Yeah.
they're heavy. This, at least it's how I register in my
Mm.
system. They're big and clunky and they're loud,
Yeah.
right? If we're going to talk into even Huna work, and I can feel and sense energies that they're somewhere there. I mean, they're loud and they're scary. And then once my vibration got high enough and I go, I don't need to give you my power. And
Right.
I'm just going to tell you to sit back down and you're going to go over there because this is my job and this is what they're doing. And they go, oh. And then they quiet down. They're like, oh, we can't control you. I said, hell
Right.
no. There's no way, especially now being a mother.
Yeah.
I became definite mama bear, and those energies scattered. I said, no, I will protect to the nth degree. And I know the higher ups who I can call upon. There is no further conversation here. And they go, oh,
Yeah.
but the love vibration,
Yes.
we have a hard time trusting it, feeling it's okay, because often it's yanked away
Yeah.
and we call it love and all this stuff. So we don't really understand what love vibration in
Mm,
its higher form feels like. And so, but when we sit with it longer and longer, then we
mm,
go, oh, I kind of feel good and it's okay and I deserve it. And why can't I have it? And then when we start to trust it,
mm.
and then we can attune to it better, then we don't need to
Right.
feel for the lower vibrations. We go, I thank you, right? God
Yes.
bless you. I wish you the best, but I don't need to be here anymore. It's like, and there's a
Yes.
part of you, you just go clunk, done. There
Yeah,
is nothing sticking to it anymore. And it's
exactly.
so freeing. It's
The molasses
fantastic.
is gone. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's I always say that when you're in a state of love, when you can't knowingly harm anyone because you know it will harm yourself, when you only can be in that state of caring, kindness,
Yes.
consideration, compassion, when those are the words that guide you and propel you, then you know you're in that state of love. But it's also the way you see everything. You see nature differently, you see each other
Mm.
differently. You know the importance of a smile, the twinkle of an eye, the laughter of a child, the dog chasing a stick, the ocean washing up against the shore, the trees talking to us with the rustling of the leaves. All of it becomes more sensory and more appreciated and more interactive, that you realize there is so much to love. And
Mhm.
that why do we see so much emphasis on hate? Because fear sells. And it has been for so long a form of control for the
Yes.
various institutions, be it government, be it religion, be it education, be it family. And when you say, you cannot control me anymore, I am of free will and I choose love, and you see it in so many different ways, it is a totally different frequency that that other platform cannot reach.
It is true. And it can't reach, it can't stick to it.
No,
It's a very interesting thing. And when you are free from that and you can create it all the time,
yes,
right? You could just sit for a moment and go, okay, I'm having a really bad day. I'm frustrated with this, etc. It's like, okay, you can strengthen your will, your
yeah,
mind, and go. And this is what I do with my children, actually. And this is a Huna trick. Is you can rub your hands together and you'll feel the vibration from your hands.
hmm,
And one, it could just be residual, sensation from your hands, but you can see it. Some people can actually see it, and yellow light comes out of your hands, and you can play with manipulating this ball of energy
yes,
and slowly growing it like taffy. And when it's big enough, sometimes my daughters are scared of the closet or
mm,
something beneath the bed. And I go, well, throw a light bulb at it.
yeah.
And I go, just throw your light at it and go, and it will scatter. Go, you don't need to be fearful. You just need to be brighter.
And to also realize the dark isn't something to be afraid of, for you are the light in the dark.
Very true. Very true. And I am excited when people find their power
Mm,
and they find their happiness for themselves, because then it just exudes out of them, and
yes,
they're not trying to do anything. They
no,
just go, I just have found my well, I have found my
yeah,
source, and I get it. I'm tapped in, I'm dialed in, I know I'm connected
mm,
in to it and everything, and there's really no conflict here.
no. They're not doing, they're being.
Yes.
And that's a very big difference. There are people that do it, they practice it because they're doing it. And there are people that become it. And the
Yes.
essence of that light of who they are, that joy who they are. And despite what gets thrown at them, I mean, they're still living a human life. Stuff is, shit's still going to try and stick, but it doesn't. And you look at, but how come? Because they look at everything not as something out to get them. Maybe a reminder, maybe a residual, maybe a tap on the shoulder. We still get that feeling of where you can feel that repression or that darkness come over you of somebody's thing, but we know what to do with it. We know how to protect ourselves from that darkness, and that's why
Yes.
it don't stick.
Yes. And what I teach as well is to, rather than just shield and protect, right? That's me versus them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I want to get out of that conflict of that duality. And let's go, well, let's expand through it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be like a diaphanous cloud and a brighter light, and just let that energy just wash around, over,
Yeah.
through, under. You can direct it any which way you want. You don't have to react.
No.
You can change that. And that's, I mean, that's why I love the movies, The Matrix and all
Yes.
those, things.
And the
There is a
avatar.
Oh, yes. There is so much truth in that. And
Right.
we think it's just magic, right? And that it's just a story. It actually isn't. Like those true essences that they weave through, you can do daily, just
Yeah.
with your mind and going, hey, there's this toxic boss or there's this toxic neighbor or whatever it is, and they're just throwing it at me. Go, great. I'm going to shift that over here.
Mm.
Energy actually is coming and out of everything.
Every
And,
single thing.
and we can shift it and manipulate it as we want to.
But going back to what you were saying before about a narcissist, because one thing you will very rarely ever see is a narcissist admitting they're a narcissist and wanting to change. Because in their state of mind, it's always everybody else's fault. It's never something they have to do. Um, and there's not much you can do for anybody that's willing to stay in that darkness. All you can be is that beacon of light that they want to be drawn to or they want to become, but it's still their journey. And for
Yes.
some, they will never leave it. They cannot. The insecurity is just so entrenched, they cannot leave it. And for others, it's like, gosh, this light is so warm. It's so loving. It's coming in through my cracks. It's,
Yeah.
burning away all this angst that I've had. But
Right.
again, we can't force it upon people. We can only shine it upon them. And
Yes.
whether they wake up to it or not, again, it's their free will and their choice of what journey they take.
It is. And, happiness is created. It's not purchased from a
No,
store or taken from someone else.
no,
And that's the fallacy I find for narcissists is they think they have to get it somewhere
yeah,
else. They don't have power. They don't feel they have power because they lost it as a child
hmm,
when they felt they, I mean, and it comes from, there are 6 developmental stages of children, where the first install is basically, I have the right to exist.
hmm,
And if they don't have the right to exist, they will shoot off into narcissistic anger and rage and so forth. And their whole life will be, I don't have the right to exist for some whatever reason. It was mistranslated, or the parent or parents did not install that well enough. However, it happened. But if you do not feel you have the right to exist, then that will color the rest of your world.
right.
And no, you cannot change a narcissist. um it will be difficult to leave a narcissist, so you kind of have to have them leave you.
Plant seeds, that's what I did. I
You
planted
have
seeds that it was their idea. Yeah,
to, yes, and you have to have them leave you, excuse me.
that's okay. Now, that's exactly what I did because I knew that there was no argument to be made. There was no rationale to even speak. I was
Yeah.
not going to change who they were. I had to only be responsible of changing myself. And so the more I moved away from him and empowered myself, the less control he had over me. And the more it then became his idea to leave.
Yes, yes. I'd recently heard of this really powerful phrase, with a lot of narcissists, rather than, they'll throw judgment at everything, right? Because they
Mm,
have to be right, they have to shine, they have to
yeah.
be the crowning glory. They have tons of insecurities. But when you respond very neutrally, And you
Mm,
go, maybe they have a judgment of, oh, can you believe that person did that? You go, some people like that.
mm,
And you go, oh, and it's a beautiful way of not offering your opinion,
right.
for which you're not creating the argument. You
Yeah,
have
you're not
nothing for
watering
them
it.
to,
Mm,
right? And you just go, some people like that. Or, some people choose that. And then there's nothing for them to respond to. And then they just move on. And it's a very good, powerful way to stay in neutral position, not offer your opinions, go, huh, that's great. Or some people like that. And it's a very good way. So you are not giving away your soul piece by piece and
yes.
trying to get it back.
I know, and it takes a long time, folks, so please avoid. There was something
Yes.
my mum brought me up with, and it took me a long time to actually really realize it. And there was two things. One, the value you place on yourself is the value that people are going to take you for,
Yes.
right? And it took me a long time to register that that value I had to place upon me. It wasn't somebody else's value of me. And the other one is that I was a very sickly child, so consequently bullied a great deal because of it. And it's like, let them have their say, tune them out. When they're finished, look at them with a glazed look and say, sorry, were you speaking to me? I didn't hear you. And of course, it
Yes.
frustrates the hell out of them, but it also takes the power that they think they have over you. You may be shivering inside, but on
Yes.
the outside, you didn't give them a response.
Yes. Very true. And it is a very beautiful way to be powerful
Mhm.
in your own right. You don't have to respond to the rest of
Right.
the world.
Exactly.
Don't
Yeah.
have to give your power away, but when you hone your skills to go up to the next levels and look at challenges in life as, rather than stumbling blocks to fall on your face, go, what do I need to learn here? What do I need to shift? What is not working? Rather than, oh, I'm this horrible person, no one loves me. It's like, oh, stop with the self. So it's self-judgment. Well,
Yeah.
where did you get your self-judgment from? Or can you just go, what do I need to learn? What do I need to shift to, so then it doesn't have to happen again in this way? Maybe, and then when you start doing that, then you're like in this boat going down with the river, not trying to climb up the river.
Mm. Yeah, believe me, it's a hard journey climbing up the river. You're going against the tide instead of with it. So, why make your life more difficult? Um,
Yes.
your book, Becoming Ridiculously Awesome, who doesn't want that? How do people get hold of it? And also, how do people get hold of you and what are you offering them, hun?
All right. So here is the cover of my book. You can go to my website, livingyourawesome.com, to get a signed copy if you would like, and I can mail that out immediately. You can also go to Amazon, where there's a Kindle version as well, and so you can do it at Amazon. I do coaching where I have 4 sessions for the cost of 3. I
Mm-hmm.
love doing this pattern because we really get into the thick of it. The first is a clearing, where we clear the energies of hexes.
Mm,
We reintegrate soul fragments. We let go of entities, and even if they're ancestral, I will help them get into the right location. We clear things out so you can be kind of your squeaky clean self, such that more learning can be more easily
yeah,
integrated. And then we will eventually get into NLP and family soul constellations, where we work with ancestral stuck energies that you may be grabbing onto, or family members are grabbing onto, that you are creating obstacles in your life that you don't know you're doing.
right.
And so I do those 4 sessions, but I also do, if you're unsure about what I do and how I can help you, I do 30-minute free consults,
Mm,
and you can sign up on my website, Living Your Awesome. I'm on Facebook, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram, I'm all over the place.
wonderful. And yes, I think, if you're not sure and you just want to reach out and have, because the person that's going to help you is the person that you resonate with, the person
Yes.
that you have a connection with, because that is the channel that is open. And if you feel that the channel's been opened for you today, then reach out, book that call, read that book, and then you'll know this person gets me because they're speaking to me. And they'll be able to help me hear myself and know what I need to do to clear forward and moving forward. This is the right why we are given paths, given calling, given purpose to step into certain abilities that we have is to help other people and to help each other on our way. Because when that person becomes beautifully awesome, then they're able to help other people, and so on and so on. And that's really what it's
Yes.
all about. So a beautiful title of the book, Becoming Ridiculously Awesome, and the site livingyourawesome.com. And she's on all the other social medias. Please reach out, folks. You know that she's going to help you, and in very many different diverse ways, but you've got to be willing to participate in your own healing and take that responsibility yourself, and willing to take the journey, because the more you're willing to do that, the quicker you're going to get through to the other side of being ridiculously awesome. Thank you so much, Meredith. And to
Thank you
everyone,
so much.
a pleasure having you here. And to everyone else out there, become ridiculously awesome. It sounds really good. Bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. Find all of our shows on selfdiscoverymedia.com under podcasts or selfdiscoverymedia/shows. And for all our current shows, go to What's New. We are supported by you, the audience. You'll see a nice big shiny blue button for one-time donations, or follow us on Patreon and you will be able to support us there. We enjoy bringing you such wisdom. And the next show will be up in just a moment.